Hello, everyone, and a very warm welcome to the Sociopedia channel. Today, we're jumping right into Chapter 2 of your Class 12 Sociology syllabus, the demographic structure of the Indian society. I know, it can sound a bit heavy, but stick with me and we'll break it all down into simple, clear concepts. Let's get started. So, what's on the agenda today? First, we'll figure out what demography even means. Then, we'll look at a couple of big theories about population, get a handle on some key terms, and then use all that to understand India's unique population story. Finally, we'll peek into the future with something called the age structure. Ready? Let's do this. Okay, first things first. What in the world is demography? At its heart, demography is the systematic study of a population. The word itself comes from two Greek words, demos, which means people, and graphein, which means to describe. So it's literally describing people. But it's way more than just counting heads. It's about spotting trends, understanding patterns of birth, death, and migration, and really digging into the structure of a population, like how many men versus women there are, or the different age groups. So we know populations change, but why? How do we explain it? Well, let's check out two major theories that have tried to answer that exact question. First up, we've got this guy, Thomas Robert Malthus. He was an English political economist, and let's just say his view on the future was, well, not exactly optimistic. Here's the core of Malthus's idea, and it's a bit of a bombshell. He argued that the human population grows way, way faster than our ability to produce food. He said population explodes geometrically. It doubles, like 2, 4, 8, 16. Meanwhile, food production just plods along arithmetically, like 2, 4, 6, 8. He saw this huge mismatch and basically concluded that humanity was stuck in a permanent cycle of poverty. And he didn't stop there. Malthus believed that nature itself has ways of fixing this imbalance. He called them positive checks, which is a pretty gentle term for things like famines and diseases that would tragically bring the population back down. Yikes! But here's the thing. History actually proved Malthus wrong. A much more modern theory came along that links population growth directly to how economically developed a country is. Let's see how that works. This theory is super interesting. It says that societies usually go through 3 stages. Stage 1. In underdeveloped societies, you have high birth rates and high death rates, so the population doesn't really grow much. Stage 2, this is the big one. Healthcare gets better, so the death rate drops, but people are still having lots of kids. Boom, you get a population explosion. And finally, stage 3. In developed societies, both birth and death rates are low and things level off again. India, by the way, is right in the middle of this whole transition. All right, to really get a grip on India's story, we need to learn a few key terms. Think of these as the essential tools in any demographer's toolkit. First up is the birth rate. It's super simple. It's just the number of live births for every 1,000 people in a population in a single year. It's a basic but absolutely vital number. And on the flip side, you've got the death rate, the number of deaths per 1,000 people in a year. Now, here's where it gets cool. If you subtract the death rate from the birth rate, you get something called the rate of natural increase. That little number tells you if a population is growing or shrinking all by itself. The infant mortality rate, or IMR, is a really important one. It counts how many babies out of every 1,000 born alive die before their first birthday. A high IMR is almost always a clear, heartbreaking sign of poverty and a lack of good health care. Next is the sex ratio. This is the number of females for every 1,000 males in an area. You might think, shouldn't it be about 1,000? Well, this ratio can tell you a ton about a society's values. In India, a declining sex ratio has been a huge worry for a long time, often pointing to a deep-rooted cultural preference for sons. Okay, we've got our tools. Now, let's put them to work and actually look at the population story of India. Let's start with a big number. According to the 2011 census, India's population was a staggering 1.21 billion people. At that time, that made India the second most populous country on the planet, just behind China. Just think about that for a second. This table tells such an amazing story. Check out that negative growth rate around 1921. What happened there? That was largely because of the horrifying 1918 influenza pandemic. Then, fast forward to 1971, and you see the growth rate peaking. That was the absolute height of India's population boom. And this chart is where you can really see that population explosion happen. Look at how after 1921, that death rate starts to plummet. That's thanks to better public health, famine control, and medicine. But the birth rate? It came down much more slowly. That huge gap between the two lines is what fueled India's incredible population growth for decades. So, what does this all mean for India's future? This is where we get to a really important idea. Take a look at this. Notice the middle row, the working age population, people between 15 and 59. See how their share of the total population is growing? It went from 53% in 1961 to a projected 64% by 2026. This isn't just a number. This shift is a massive opportunity for the country. What's also fascinating is where the future growth is predicted to come from. It's not spread out evenly at all. It's actually really concentrated, with states like Uttar Pradesh and Bihar expected to account for almost a third of the increase all by themselves. And all of this leads us to the demographic dividend. It sounds fancy, but the idea is simple. It's the potential for huge economic growth that can happen when a country has more people of working age than dependents, young children and the elderly. But, and this is absolutely crucial, it's a temporary window of opportunity. It doesn't last forever. And that brings us to the big question, the one that policymakers and economists are thinking about right now. How can India make the most of this incredible demographic dividend before that window of opportunity starts to close? What do we need to do in terms of education, healthcare, and creating jobs to turn this potential into a reality? So, from Malthus's scary predictions to the hopeful idea of a demographic dividend, we've covered a lot today. India's at a really critical point with this amazing chance to use its young population for massive growth. Now, if you want complete, detailed notes for this chapter to help you with your exams, you can find them on our Telegram channel. The link is right there in the description below. Thank you so much for joining me today.